The sermon today had a title, The Followers of Jesus. And we're going to read just one verse, only a single verse from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10 and verse 32. And it says, "And they were in the way going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus went before them. And they were amazed, and as they followed, they were afraid." This verse has been taken from the story of the triumphant entrance of Jesus to Jerusalem for the last time. And it says here that Jesus was pressing forward, moving forward, entering Jerusalem, and as they were following him, the disciples and the multitude, they were following him. And as they were following, they were amazed, but they were afraid. Following someone sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. We're going to find out today. So, do you like the blonde stories? Oh, yeah, it's a kind of racist, but it drives some point. So one day, in a snowy night, during the winter, a blonde got caught in her car in a snowstorm. She was panicked a little, but she remembered something, a piece of advice that her dad were advising her with when she started to drive. He said, "You know what? Always remember, if you find yourself in the middle of a huge snowstorm and you panic, you don't know what to do, where to go, just wait. Don't do anything. Don't drive. Wait for a snowplow. These huge trucks, they clear the snow. Once you find one of them going, you just follow him. He is always clearing the snow from the road. You are always following him. You are safe." So she remembered that piece of advice. She said, "I'm going to follow my dad's advice." So she waited. A couple minutes later, luckily, she found a huge snowplow coming in. So she pulled out. She followed the snowplow. For 50 minutes, she was driving behind that huge truck. After 50 minutes, the driver parked, came out, and he asked her, "Lady, what are you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm following you." He said, "Why?" "This is what my dad advised me. If I'm always, anytime, stuck in a snowstorm, I follow a plow." He said, "Okay, now I want to let you know that I finished plowing the Walmart parking lot. I'm going to Kmart now. You would like to follow me?" So, it's not a good advice that you follow someone always, all the time. So I wanted to tell you that they call the Christians today the followers of Jesus. It means following the way of Jesus. And they call the Jews are the followers of Moses and his law. They call the Christian the followers of Christ and his gospel or his Bible. And also they call the Muslims. They are the followers of Muhammad and his decree. But I have a question today. Should we be the followers of Jesus? Really? Is it really good to follow Jesus? Sometimes we say, yeah, we should follow Jesus. We advise people to follow Jesus. Is it really a good advice to follow Jesus? I want to tell you something very important this morning. Jesus didn't come to be followed. To follow Jesus only is very dangerous. As we read a few minutes ago from the Gospel of Mark, the disciples were following Jesus, but what was their condition and what were their feelings? The Bible said it two things. They were amazed, and amazed means really astonished or wondering. And afraid. They were in fear. And my message to you today, that Jesus doesn't want you to follow him. Are you surprised? Yeah. Jesus wants you to be with him, to walk with him. It's a huge difference between following Jesus or walking with Jesus. Big difference, huge difference between following someone and to walk with same person. To follow a person, you don't know him and you don't know anything about him. All what you know, the way he looks from the back. Just following someone, you won't know what's in his mind. You won't even know what he looks like as long as you're always following him and you'll always see his back. But if you walk with him, there will be conversations, discussions, exchanging of ideas, unity in goals and visions. And when we go to the Bible, when we see how the disciples started their mission after Jesus, when Peter healed the lame man at the temple's gate, we all know the story. After the man was healed, the priest threatened them, Peter and John. But Peter and John weren't scared by the threat. And the Bible said that the priests were amazed at their courage. The Bible says in book of Acts, chapter 4, verse 17, these words, when they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished and they took note that these men had been with Jesus. They didn't say, oh, we know. Now we can realize the courage that they have, why they are so courageous, because they were following Jesus. No, they said they were with Jesus. And my message to you today, Jesus doesn't want you to follow him. Jesus wants you to walk with him, hand in hand. They had been with Jesus, not just following Jesus. We need to change today, guys, from following Jesus to being with Jesus, to be like when Paul said, for in him we will live and move and have our beings. Someone would ask me, but I thought all my life that following Jesus is enough. Actually, I thought that it's more than enough just to follow Jesus. You know, there are some serious consequences for just following Jesus, not walking with him. And the first one is fear. The disciples followed Jesus, but they were afraid. They were expecting Christ's kingdom to be established, and that means rest and luxury in their mind. But when they found that he is going to Jerusalem, and they know that lots of things, lots of plans to kill him at that time, so they were really expecting the kingdom of Christ to come. And this means they will have part of it, and they will have a good life, good lifestyle. Maybe some of them will be ministers, or like at least they're going to be close friends to the royal. But when they found out that he is going to Jerusalem at that crucial time, they knew that he is going to die. And they didn't like that. When we read about stories that too many fights and wars, we hear and we read in the newspapers, in the internet, Facebook, and we see that people, they say, you know, lots of people are dying. Like, this country is fighting with this country, and they have war for so many weeks, so many months, or even years, and lots of soldiers are dying from both sides. Let me ask a question. Do you think that every single soldier died in the war, he died believing in the reason why he was killed? I don't think so. Maybe some of them. But I would say lots of soldiers had been killed in so many wars through the age. And lots of them, they didn't want to be part of this war. So, If your relationship with Jesus is just following Him, you are just a Christian that follows the way of Jesus. That's why you are always afraid of everything. We are afraid of our future. We are afraid of sickness, death, poverty, failure, etc. If you believe in Jesus, why you're afraid? Why you're scared from everything around you? Why you're always looking to tomorrow as a scary thing? I don't know what's going to happen. You know why? Because we are just followers of Jesus. We follow. We're not walking with Him. If you walk with Jesus, if you are with Jesus, you will never be scared. You will never be afraid. So, first thing that could happen to me and you if you're just following Jesus, fear, to be scared, to be afraid of everything around you. And the second thing is denial. Mark says that Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. Peter followed Jesus at a distance because they arrested Jesus. So they took him and he wanted to know what's going to happen to Jesus. So he said, I'm going to follow him. But you know what? It's not wise at that time to follow closely. Let me follow him at a distance, just to be aware what's going on. We all know the story that he followed him. They took Jesus to the house of the place where the high priest were living at that time. He followed to the courtyard. And he was sitting there. And when he was confronted that he was with Jesus, he said, no. He denied. Yes, he followed Jesus, but he wasn't willing to die with him. There is a big difference. I can follow you, God, but if something bad happened to you, I'm not willing to be part of it. I can follow you. I can see what you're doing. I can hear what you're saying. I can really be amazed and be, excited about my following to you. But when it comes to something serious, I don't want to be part of it. So he denied that he knew Jesus, and he went beyond that. He swore and he cursed. So can you imagine? Peter was like a pastor. If you confronted your pastor one day and he found your pastor lying, and then he's swearing and he's cursing you, what do you think about this pastor? Is he a Christian pastor? No. He's a pastor, but he is just following Jesus at a distance. So, after he denied Jesus and he swore and he cursed, he regretted and felt no point of following Jesus anymore. He felt so bad about himself. This is what I got myself to. You know what? I'm going back to fishing. He decided to go back to fishing. And he was destroying his whole life. He was willing to live as a pathetic fisherman for the rest of his life. You know why? Because he was just a pathetic follower of Jesus. Sometimes we wonder when we see an individual Christian, converted to another religion or becomes an atheist. And we think, how come? I knew this guy, I knew this girl for long, and she was always going to church. She was actually serving at some point in a ministry, and all of a sudden, I found her, or I found him, not believing in God at all. He just lost his faith, lost her faith, and became an atheist. So, no matter what the circumstances, the only reason is that this person was just a follower of Jesus. And if following Jesus is dangerous, then how dangerous is following Jesus at a distance? Those who followed him closely were astonished and afraid. Those who followed him at a distance denied him and deserted him. Mark says, then everyone deserted him and fled. All of them left. Not even one. Peter the courageous, John the most beloved, Simon the jealous, and Nathanael the Israelite, indeed, in whom there is no deceit. all of them fled. Because all of them, they were following Jesus at a distance. They never walked with him. And the third thing and last thing, the fighting. Can you imagine that the disciples are fighting together? When we have a fight in a youth group, it's a disaster. But it's a youth group. When we have a fight in a church, oh, it's pathetic, but it's a church. Can you imagine the apostles, the disciples, they're fighting together? Let me tell you how it happened. They were fighting while they were following Jesus. They didn't wait when Jesus was asleep in another room and they went to the other room and they fought. No. Jesus was walking, they were following him, and while they were following Jesus, they were fighting. Mark says this, they came to Capernaum. When he was in the house, he asked them, what were you arguing about on the road? So he was walking, they were following him, and he can hear argument in the background. So we were arguing. But Jesus was very polite when he said they were arguing. You know, Jesus, when he talks to people very, very politely. He is not rude. So he confronted them, but in a very nice way. So guys, I heard some argumentation happening while we were coming in. So what were you arguing about? You should ask me, how did you know that they weren't arguing, but Jesus was trying to say it in a nice way? I will let you know. Luke recorded the same thing happened, but in his writing, he wrote strife. Didn't write arguing. So I looked at the word strife. The word strife means an angry or violent disagreement. So some people, they argue, which team is better, the Maple Leaf or, I'm not really, or the Canadian. So we can argue. But some people, when they argue, they go violent and they go angry. So Jesus was telling them, what were you arguing about, guys? Luke says, hey, people, listen, Jesus was so nice telling them arguing. They weren't arguing. It was a strife. It was violent and angry disagreement. They were angry. Probably they were yelling at each other. And I would say most likely they were swearing as well. So, can you imagine? What's happening? What's going on? These people are good people. These people are ministers. These people at one time, they took authority, spiritual authority from Jesus to cast out demons and to heal the sick people. And they came to report back to Jesus. They were so happy. They were so excited. They were telling him, you know what? We did amazing things. Even evil spirits and the devil submitting to us in your name. And Jesus said, you know what, if you are happy with this, you should be more happy and excited because your own names has been written in the book of life. So these people, they had their name written in the book of life. They casted out demons. They healed sick people. They preached the gospel. They won people to Christ. What was happening? They were yelling at each other. They were swearing at each other. Violent disagreement. Maybe they were about to hit one another. I don't know. With someone, with Peter, everything is possible. If I imagine violent disagreement between the apostle and Peter, part of it, probably he will punch someone in the face or kick someone. I would say that. We are wondering why people at the same church have fights together, even between ministers, and conflicts for authority between members, simply because everyone is just following Jesus at a distance. Why don't we change today, guys? If we change, fear, denial, fights disappear from our lives. And I would say, enough following Jesus at a distance. From now on, we walk with him, but with him When I say be with Jesus, I mean be with Jesus not just at church, but at home, at work, at school, and at the church. See, I will tell you a story has been written and published in the ABC News. They said, we gathered a group of people together for a test of visual perception. The actual test was simple: to mentally rotate some 3D shapes and compare them to see whether they were the same or different. Are you paying attention? First, the volunteers wrote down their answers to 10 questions privately. But then they had to give the next series of answers out loud for everyone to hear. But this test came with a twist. One of the participants was in the experiment with the answer in her hand. Everyone else had been told to follow her lead, except for the participant. So, they brought one person and they set him up. One has the answer in her hands, and she gonna say the answer out loud. And they asked the rest of participants to follow her lead, say exactly what she gonna say, except one. And they wanna see this person if he gonna follow the crowd or stick to the answer. To the surprise, this guy gave the wrong answers with the crowd. Though privately he scored 80%. When he was hearing everybody giving the wrong answer and he went with them, he scored 10%. Why? Because people, they follow the crowd. They asked him, when you were alone, you gave lots of good answers. You scored 80%. Why you didn't give the right answers back then? He said, you know what, this is exactly word by word his answer. 5 people are seeing it and I am not. I just went along with the answers. Maybe they see something I don't see. Maybe they know something that I don't know. Maybe they are aware of something that I'm not aware of. Be careful. Don't follow the crowd. Go beyond that and follow Jesus, but don't stay for the rest of your life a follower of Jesus. Take few steps forward and walk with him. He will take you by the hand and he will lead you. He will be by your side. I like every single worship song when it talks about that Jesus is by my side. It's good to follow Jesus, yes. But till when? Till when you're gonna be just a follower? When you're gonna be walking with Jesus? Go back to the book of Genesis and read about the people. They were following Jesus, following God, but only one person walked with God. His name was Enoch. And this Enoch was transformed. Immediately, in part of the second, he was transformed from being a regular, normal human being like me and you, walking on earth, to a heavenly being, living with God in heaven for the rest of his life. So the choice is yours. Keep following Jesus at a distance, live in a denial, fight with each other, and live with fear all your days. Or to step forward and say, you know what, enough following Jesus. I'm going to be walking with him. I'm going to be walking by his side and he's by my side for the rest of my life. Let's pray.